Hi there, my name is Henry Tenby and welcome to this edition of Model Moment. Today is February the 12th, 2021, and it is a historic day today for the Learjet. These are Learjet models, and in this edition of Model Moment, we're going to be talking about these iconic Learjet models from the 1960s made by Nemoto. But first, we need to talk about the history that's taking place today. On this day, this morning, when I read the newspaper, I was kind of shocked to see this headline. I don't know if you can see it, but what it says, this is the National Post, and both the National Post and the Globe and Mail here in Canada reported that Bombardier would be ceasing production of their iconic Learjet aircraft. The Learjet brand goes back to 1963. And Bombardier acquired it some decades ago, but they're actually ceasing production of all Learjets later this year, and the production line will be shut down or reallocated to other production. The interesting thing is that the Learjet, of course, as many of you know, was the first executive corporate jet, successful, I should say, in the United States. Some might argue that the Lockheed Jetstar was the first, but really in terms of mass production and mass market penetration, it would be the Learjet that would be the first iconic bizjet from the 1960s. Now what's happening is apparently the market has gotten smaller, and Bombardier, which produces the Learjet at the $9.5 million entry point, as well as the Challenger and their Global Express, that spans the range all the way up to $75 million. And they felt that the Learjet brand had run its course and it was time to focus on their other business jet operations. So instead of selling Learjet as an existing standalone company, they made the executive decision to actually shut it down. They wanted to remove a possible competitor from operating in the marketplace under the Learjet brand. So they're just shutting it down, and so ends a almost 60-year run for the iconic Learjet brand. So 3,000 Learjets were built between 1963 and present day. The design was the creation of Bill Lear. He was an entrepreneur, an aviation entrepreneur back in the 1960s, and at the time, corporate travel was either by the commercial airlines or by old 1940s and 50s clunker piston pounders that were for sale on the secondhand market. And he envisioned the creation of a business jet aircraft to carry business executives on 3,000 to 4,000 kilometer range flights in luxury. So the aircraft was designed by himself, and it was a hot rod. And of course, it was initially touted as a very high performance aircraft. It looks like a bullet, it looks like a fighter aircraft. A Learjet could get up to altitude, 40,000 feet very rapidly. It was a high performance aircraft, but it did suck back the fuel. And there are many hundreds of Learjets from the 1970s and even 60s still in operation, and you can actually purchase a real Learjet for, like this aircraft, for a few $100,000. Now the maintenance is a different story, but we're here to talk about the models. And before I get into the models, I do want to thank everybody that's tuned in to watch these shows for the last several weeks. I appreciate your support. We now have about 200 people that are watching these videos, and I do thank you, and I encourage everybody to, of course, leave thumbs up if you like the videos, and I love reading your comments below. So please do put your comments below, and I will respond to all of them. So this model is a early, 1960s era Learjet 25, or it could be a Learjet 24. And these were the original Learjets with the single window on the port side and the double windows on the starboard side. And anybody who was famous in the 1960s flew with one of these, be it Elvis, Frank Sinatra, you name it, they flew on Learjets. And Learjets, of course, were marketed by the Lear company in the United States, and they had sales outlets throughout the world that marketed their business jets to rich individuals abroad. And Japan, of course, was an interesting and important market for Learjet. So it goes without saying that they had a presence in Japan and they needed models. So who did they turn to produce the Learjet models? None other than the famous Nemoto. And this is a Nemoto model. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I should tell you that I've written a book. It's called The Aircraft Display Model Collector, Investor, and Appraisal Guide. And in this book, I do an entire chapter dedication to Nemoto models. That's actually Mr. Nemoto right there in the corner, photo taken in the late 80s. And he was a master model maker. His work was initially in wood, starting in the 1950s. And he then evolved to resins. And this is one such model. This is resin. The accuracy of Nemoto models is really second to none. And it's understood that he wanted the maximum level of detail in his models. So he had a special formulation of resin created for him so that he could cast it and get incredible detail. Now have a look there at the wing surfaces. I don't know if you can see it, but it's molded in, and we're talking 1968, mid 60s, probably 65, 66, 67, 68 for these models. And the level of accuracy is just spectacular. And this was his stock and trade, producing high detail models. Now, as this model right here is 50 years old, it's very precious. It is in great shape, but the problem with these old resin models, especially the Nemotos, if you drop this model, it will shatter into 1,000 pieces. They are extremely brittle, they're extremely fragile, and once they are broken into a handful of pieces, they're not going to come back together. So you do have to treat these models very carefully, and they will last, another 50, 100 years, I guess, so long as they don't come into violent contact with the ground. So this is a red example. The cheat line is red, and the underside there is red. The model is mounted on a typical Nemoto, metal Nemoto stand. These style of stands were used by Nemoto on many of his models throughout the 1960s. And he actually has his name right, well, it's actually upside down. I have to hold the model very carefully. And you can see his name right there. That's the Nemoto branding. Very, very discreet, I must say. So yeah, this is the red model, but he produced them in at least two colors because this is the exact same model in green. So which one do you like better? I think they're both very cool. Unfortunately, this one I don't have a stand for, but they are neat models. I consider them as brothers or sisters, and I'm looking for a Nemoto stand for this one. But yeah, I like the green very much as well. I should point out, I'm a huge fan of Nemoto models, and for that reason, I'm always looking to buy, sell, and trade Nemoto models. So I could consider this green Nemoto model as a surplus model in my collection, and I would be willing to trade it for another Nemoto model. So if you have a Nemoto model that you're able or interested in trading for this green Learjet Nemoto model, please do contact me. I'd be happy to hear from you. So what scale are we talking here? The model's about 15 inches long with about a 12, 13-inch wingspan. It's definitely not 1/72. I'm going to put this at, just eyeballing it, about 1/50th scale. And they don't have registrations. I guess if you ordered a model from Learjet, perhaps they would have Nemoto prepare one in your custom livery with your own registration. That I don't know. All we know is that the two examples that I have are without registrations. The only writing on the model, if you will, is right there where it says Learjet, and that's the same on the green one. So what's neat, he's got the anti-collision beacons on the tip tanks. You've got an anti-collision beacon there, and I guess that's a static discharge point on the trailing edge of the tail. And you've got some detail there on the engine intake, or I should say I guess that's an air supply intake at the base of the tail. And it's a nice and tight connection here onto the base, very sturdy. And generally, I don't consider myself to be a bizjet guy, but I am a lover of high quality display models, certainly vintage ones from the 60s. And this model is very pleasing on the eye because it's just so darn accurate. And it's a wonderful model to have in the collection because of the history of the Learjet. And what I actually like about Nemoto models as well is if you look at his windows, again, you've got there's etched outlines around the windows, and I like his selection of that green color. Well, it's a blue-green, I'd call it, or a gray, blue, green steel color for the windows. That looks really sharp. And the green Learjet has the exact same color on the windows. So that was a standard operating procedure from Nemoto back then. So I should tell you that I do have a number of avenues for you to engage with other collectors. I do operate the Aircraft Display Model group on Facebook, and I'm going to post the link in the video description. So I invite you to come and enjoy the group. You can post your pictures and comment. That is highly recommended. And I'll look forward to sharing some other of my aviation display model social network avenues for you as well in coming videos. So what do you think of this model? Does it appeal to you? What do you think of the accuracy of the model? Do you agree that the historic importance of the model and its accuracy would make it worthy of a place in your collection? Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, if you did, I'd really appreciate 2 solid thumbs up, and look forward to your comments, and I'll look forward to seeing you in our next episode.